Good morning, everyone. Anthony Tharp again, making another insert. It's 10:06 a.m. and it's Monday, March 6th already, 2023. And I took a couple days off from making any commentaries because I had to recharge the batteries, spend some time with the grandkids, and get myself together in terms of where I need to be in terms of my life. And it seemed like I still have to focus on getting people to become aware of exactly what's going on in Jamaica, and the fact that if you're Jamaican or you plan on doing business in Jamaica, these videos that I'm doing will certainly help you to make a educated decision and not just rush in on the whims and fancy of subjective emotional thought. We love the island because it's indeed beautiful. Yes, its people are some of the best people in the world, but amongst those people, like everywhere else, you have people who are just corrupt and makes no sense, but they are, because the corruption will eventually get to them as well. It will eventually touch them, and unfortunately, they don't seem to understand the implications for them and the entire country, as well as persons who live outside of the country in the diaspora. So I had indicated to viewers, persons looking at these videos and following up, that not only am I going to be exposing the corruption in the courts in Jamaica, but exposing the players from the international side of this whole scheme that's going on, this fraudulent scheme. I'm going to expose those international fraudsters as well, who have formed a giant conspiracy that has been active and ongoing since 2010. And unfortunately, it also brings into focus again the nature of the justices before whom this matter came and the kind of actions they took and are still taking in terms of suppressing justice, and under the guise that they're there to do just that. And so I'm exposing it plain and straight. And I've also indicated that not only do I have actual life experience, real life experience in facing corruption, but I have the experiences of other persons who have gone into it that I'm personally connected to and are going through. And again, I'll always be saying, if this is happening to me, somebody who knows the system, knows their rights, knows that you don't just sit down and accept people oppressing you and taking your civil and human rights from you or abusing it, and they're doing it. And if I'm this vocal and they're still doing it, what about the persons who are quote unquote timid, ignorant of their rights, or too afraid to assert themselves? Because the way I look at it, I'm going to be leaving this planet in the near future, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. That's near enough. But I'm going to be leaving, and as I've said before, I'm not catching on this planet. I have all the right that every other individual who believes they have the right to be here has. And I can't say anything I want to about where I think we should be in terms of human relations, in terms of our existence as a people, as human beings, and not be led by people who feel they have some superiority or endowed by whatever means. I am who I am. My ancestors taught me that. And we've come a far way in terms of overcoming some of the oppression, but they're silent. As I said, the monster merely changes its shape. And so our monster dealing with the real world today is corruption. Corruption drives everything else. If you didn't have corruption, persons couldn't go and steal people's stuff and then have somewhere to sell it and then legitimize it and get it back into the system so they could turn that money, that illegally gained money, over and then legitimize it. In other words, wash the money, launder the money. And if it wasn't for corruption, none of that could go on. If banks weren't involved in in corruption and helping to launder dirty money, then it couldn't go on. So it's always going to be the focus of us fixing our problems. If we can reduce the number of corrupt people on the planet, then we can improve the life of the people on the planet. If we can come up with strategies, not if, we can come up with strategies that will minimize the opportunities for these persons. And my focus and my primary focus is dealing with one of the primary sources of corruption that we need to fix or overcome, because if we don't, we're going to have some serious issues to deal with long term and short term. So again, as I said, I'll be dealing with the aspect of the corruption from the United States side of this whole conspiracy. I'm going to try to pan around a little so because the glare is a fat glare in my face and possibly messing up the quality of what I'm doing. And it's low chair. Yeah, this glare on my glasses, I just noticed it. Anyway, so Capital One, John Graham was apparently recruited by or recommended to Capital One, and Capital One is one of the primary international culprits of this whole grand scheme to defraud me and my partners of not only wealth in terms of significant amount of money, actual money, but in terms of significant amount of capital in the form of real estate. And I detailed a couple of weeks ago, or last week or week before, the level of damages we face. We're talking about trillions of dollars in damages. And if we're facing that level of damage, the economy of Jamaica is facing that or even more. Because not only would we have been bringing in major capital for the island and ourselves, but our investment would be attracting other investors into the country. And as indicated before, there are several proprietary products that we have sitting to get out there. Now, I spent this morning sending out emails to the appeals court and the Supreme Court, the registrar, reminding them that I'm still waiting on dates to be set for several matters in the court which deal directly with this whole damages that we're faced or have been put into a position of being damaged by Capital One, the U.S. bank, the U.S. financial institution that has engaged John Graham, Trevor Hullin, Alexis Robinson, and several other parties to defraud us. So the fact is, the damages are significant, which we detailed and outlined, and that's just a fraction of the damages, because we just did the basic calculations based on value of real estate, depreciation in the values of the real estate over time, and plus the loss of revenue, residual income from those properties. We didn't go into the details about the other products that's on the table that we are 1,000% sure would be significant income earners, not only for us, but for the country itself, lifting Jamaica out of this level of poverty. And of course, everybody that's listening here must know that Jamaica is Jamaica is amongst the poorest countries on the planet. People who live there, and we have a relatively good lifestyle. We don't realize it, but that's typically what happens in a country that's overly depressed in terms of its economic gains. The people who can survive typically don't really see the dangers of an economy that's crashing until it's too late, until you have riots in the street, until you have to flee, you become a refugee. Because you slept while all the indicators they're clearly telling you that something must be wrong. By ignoring it and pretending it's not happening, not going to let it get away or leave. And that's one of the problems we face in Jamaica right now. The vast majority of us sit there and either pretend it's not happening or ignore it, think it's going to go someplace. I don't know where you think it's going to go, because crime, violence, and corruption, they don't go anywhere unless you try to get rid of it. And that's essentially what I'm saying to everybody that's here, is that you need to play a role. My intention with these videos was to get you the information and hope that people would react and not just make statements and then stay in the background, but to really build communities, build a group of people who will be vocal in dealing with it, because you must realize that if you want the best quality of life on this planet, then you have to play a role to guarantee that it does happen. And when you have a country like Jamaica, where you either have a special interest, you're from there, or you live there, and you allow it to deteriorate into a failed state, then certainly you're not looking out for your own interests. And I'll say it's always good. I always tell you, when you're investing, diversify your investment portfolio. And I'm saying this to every Jamaican who lives outside of the US, out of Jamaica. I'm saying to you, home is home, and you need to diversify your capital when it comes to your locations, where you live, where you invest in real estate, for the simple reason that if one goes bad, for whatever reason, you have someplace else to go. Now, the US is one of the best countries to live, except if you're dealing with it from a political perspective, or if you're an immigrant, and the racism that exists. And those are three factors that can lead quickly to turning any persons from outside the US, that's born outside the US, or even born in the US, that are not of European ancestry. The reality is that you need to have some places that you could run as a reserve place, a place to bunker down if anything does happen. And meaning, if these unruly people become violent, where do you have to go? When you retire, if you can't afford a lifestyle here, where do you go? And the best place to do is focus on where you're from, where you have relatives, you have friends, because I'm pretty sure everybody that left there have some family there, and try to maintain those relationships so that if you do have to run back or go back, you have some place that's civil, that you could live. But the only way to achieve that and maintain it is that you have to play a role to make sure it's the kind of place you want to live. And that means dealing with the corruption, removing from office or from public places people who are involved in corruption, and ensure that you don't have to deal with that kind of thing. A lot of people might be saying, oh, I'm talking about all of these things happening, but it's not going to affect me. It's already affecting you. The minute I'm talking about it, it's affecting you. Because if you understand global economics and the fact that capital moves and shifts, and it will not go back to certain places if conditions get worse, then those places can only get worse. And it means if you have investments there, you're at a loss. So playing a role is a key ingredient into protecting your own interests. So I'm asking persons who will listen and view these videos to help us build an organization or a community that will help to make a difference. And I'm not trying to build another political party, and not that there's anything wrong with that, because I too believe that you need a strong third or fourth party on the island. It makes no sense to keep supporting two parties and we end up with the same kind of people, the same people that's been there for centuries and generations, and nothing improves. And we might see a new road, a new highway, but when you look at the overall conditions of the economy and you compare it to what it used to be, then you realize that relatively Jamaica is stagnant and has been stagnant. I remember I grew up in Montego Bay, and I remember you could walk the streets of Montego Bay when I was going to high school, and I have to worry about all the mess that's there now. Now you go down to downtown Montego Bay, you don't even want to go down, as a matter of fact. It's problematic even moving around. The level of hostilities that goes. I remember people to walk, including strangers, see each other, good morning, they smile, and all of that stuff is gone. You go down now, it's a angry group of persons, upset, either angry or afraid, but too afraid to even say good morning and greet each other, which is part of our tradition. The bulk of our people who came out of West Africa, the Yoruba, Egbo, and Fulani, and a whole bunch of them, one of the primary features of their culture was being polite to each other, saying good morning, greeting each other. In fact, they say the Yoruba was one of the groups who they spent a lot of time making sure they were courteous to everybody that they met. And that was a tradition that we had in Jamaica for a long time, because I remember when I used to go into New York a lot and fly into JFK, one of the demarking features of Jamaican culture and the people who landed there out of Jamaica was that when they stepped up to, whether it was customs, immigration, they would say good morning, good afternoon. And I didn't even realize that was a significant thing until several customs officers who I met after or during my tenure in New York used to say to me, you know how we can tell a Jamaican when they land at JFK? Because they are some of the most polite people they have met. They'll come in, they'll smile, they'll say good afternoon, good morning, before they do anything else. So that tradition of being courteous, having manners then, in short, is not only a derivative of our culture out of Africa, but we maintain that in Jamaica. And to a limited extent, I see it's still there, but it's diminishing. And is there a correlation between the crime, the corruption, the depression, the recession, and being courteous to each other? I submit, I think so. So even that, we need to re-educate our people and put it back into schools, where when students go to school, they say good morning, good afternoon. When you're dropping off your kids at school or wherever you're taking them, good morning, good morning. When you wake them up, say good morning, good afternoon, so they learn early that this makes a big difference in the kind of relationship you have, not only amongst your people, amongst yourself, but within the greater community. Because I say, I grew up passing people on the street. I lived in the neighborhood. You had to say good morning or good afternoon, Mr. So-and-so, because that was just how people were taught to live. And I think it does make a difference. So I'm straying a little, but the point is, if we want to maintain a good lifestyle, a quality lifestyle, that you can really work towards being a happy person, we have to ensure that we remove from amongst our communities the things that deteriorate our communities. And one of those primary factors is crime. Crime, violence, and corruption. The primary ingredient for all those other ill factors that affect us in society. So going back now to our whole situation with the corruption in the courts in Jamaica, is that sadly enough, you'd think justices in the Jamaica court would take their utmost to protect the Jamaican judiciary. And that hasn't been the case in at all. In fact, when you look at the actions they've taken that we've discussed and presented documentation to you before, you find that these justices quickly sell out Jamaica and self-subjugate themselves to foreign influence. And why? Must be corruption. Nobody sells out their country or sell out their legitimacy or their sovereignty or their jurisdiction if something isn't in there that they figure is more valuable. What could be more valuable than you being an independent leader within the community? Now, judges are amongst, or should be amongst, our most respected persons that live within any country or any community, any jurisdiction, any sovereign nation. And when you have judges who sell out their country, sell out their people, sell out their economy, and they're collecting taxpayers' dollars, now something is wrong with that. Something is wrong with that person. So any justice that's hearing this and they're involved in all these underhanded, corrupt action against the Jamaican people, or any litigant that comes in there, and you ignore what you're supposed to be there adjudicating justice and making sure you dispossess people who are committing crimes and ensure that people are protected who are not. And if you're not doing those things, then just give it up and leave, because eventually you'll be caught, and how you're dealt with will depend on what mood the people are in at that time. And I suggested earlier that when you have a failed state and corruption and people get violent, people get hurt. And you know this. Every lawyer, every judge, every sociologist must have studied some history. And studying the Jamaican history before you get into Jamaican law. And knowing this, you should not forget the path we had to take to get to where we are. And that path made us into a strong people, but we don't take foolishness. And I'm saying to you, stop destroying your country, stop destroying your people, stop destroying the economy by taking short money that you think is beneficial to you now, but when you get caught, it's not going to be any good. So you're taking short money to destroy the quality of a community that you live in and existing, and was given the honored position of protecting that economy or those people. And that's not what's been going on. And we are the living proof. Now, persons have indicated that, these people might try to victimize. We've already been the victims of some of these judges. We know this. And they know it. And they figure if you don't speak up, then they're going to get away with it. That's why I am very vocal and have made up my mind that I'm not going to sit there and take any foolishness from another human being who has no more right to this planet than I have. If I get in there, I've never been disrespectful for any member of the judiciary, even when they deserve it. But if you try to disrespect me, I'm not going to sit and take it either. So that's what we have to have, mutual respect, and that's what we don't have in this country, especially when you have people in positions like the judiciary. I have gone there and I've seen the vast majority of judges and justices who have been involved with or in front of are some of the nicest people, the most respectable people I've met. They're courteous and all of that. It's the handful that everybody remembers, though. Most people don't listen to good news. They pay attention to bad news. And when you're going to court or you're dealing with people with nasty attitudes, whether they're on the front line sitting on a bench as a judge, or they're officers of the court working at the registry or in records or wherever, and they have a nasty attitude, that's who we remember. It's the people with the nasty attitudes. And so I'm saying again that these are things we need to fix. I don't think it's unfixable, because we're coming from a place where Jamaica was much better off. I'm not talking about economic wise, I'm talking about human relations. We were much better off. We were much better people. We were connected. You could respect your neighbor. Now, anywhere in the world we used to go to and see another Jamaican, it was like meeting a family member. Now, you have, I think we have a higher standard of acceptance of Jamaicans in the diaspora than when you go home. People in the diaspora are more friendly towards each other than when you go home. And that's sad. That's truly sad. So, Jamaicans, please step up. I'm going to be presenting the information on the corrupt judges, not only in Jamaica, which I have done, but we have a lot more to present. As I spent the morning contacting the registry about the appeals court and the Supreme Court, and notifying them and reminding them that, listen, we have matters sitting in the court from 2010. Some of them, it's just decisions that need to be made, and we're waiting from 2017. And one particular issue on the project in Clarendon, where I explained in a previous video that the judge made a ruling that changed the real estate developers act, that we're still waiting on a decision from the appeals court from 2017, 2018, somewhere around there. It's now 2023, and those are time-sensitive issues. We have a 300-acre development there. People are going to be squatting on the property. Who's going to help us to deal with it? Or do we deal with it at all? Because if Justice Stye's ruling is upheld, it means you probably only want to do business in Jamaica, because the collapse of not only the real estate market, but the banking sector in terms of mortgages will be a reality. And so I emailed them this morning to say, listen, I'm waiting. I put some links to the videos that I did on the whole money issue and the damage that will be done to the banking and the real estate industry if the ruling comes down. But we need to know, so I could inform other investors and my partners that it's not us that's holding up the progress, but it's the courts. And there's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't be getting those decisions. From 2017 to now, that's 6 years. Why does a court need to take 6 years to make a decision on a simple matter? And now you know why we have a lot of issues. But again, is that something that's being directed at us, at me? That I have been in front of the court, presenting our side of the whole matter, and now we're waiting on a decision, and it's taking 6 years. And it's not only that, as I've said to you before, we sued the FSC. That case, we can't even find the files, as far as I know. And that suit was from 2007. Why is that? Is it because it's a government agency, a pseudo-government agency, and the Attorney General is pulling its strings over at the Supreme Court? And there is no foundation in challenging our thought pattern here. Because why should the Attorney General be involved in a lawsuit against people who've committed defamation in the first place? They should get their own attorneys and not have taxpayers paying their bills, because I'm paying taxes. So I'm paying these guys bills and I'm challenging them in court because they're using the Attorney General. And we'll go back to the whole thing, the whole corruption. We have to fix it. And fixing it means dealing with issues like this from government agencies. We have government too involved with everything. And that's one of the biggest mistakes we made as a people. Government should be involved in every aspect of our lives. Government should be following up on things we indicate we need done, and they sit there and formulate national policy that will accommodate those things, and not have them sit there and come up or dream up with everything they think we need, that they think we need, when in fact we don't. And in most cases it's self-serving. They're making laws, they're making plans with the national government that suits them and not the people on a whole. So it's a problem. It's a big problem. And I want to help to solve it. And so I'm reaching out to you again. A lot of persons have been reviewing the videos. I want to take this to another level and get other people involved. So even if I'm not around, then this movement can go on, so we can maintain a permanent watchdog made up of citizens that will keep an eye on government. We're not relying on the opposition because they've proven themselves to be extremely weak. So we need an independent community of persons who have the interests of the whole country at heart, that will objectively weigh, watch, and manage each of these political entities that emerge, so that we can go back to a lifestyle and a quality of life clean, safe community. We can raise our kids. They can go walking on the street if they want to and not disappear. So that's my objective. And in order to do that now, I'm going to convert this channel into a productive social movement that we can use to effect those changes. So I'm not just coming here to read off the news and repeat the bad things that's happening. I'm telling you about things that happen to me, my partners, that we can use to say to you, this is not hearsay. I've shown you the evidence. I've shown you the facts. Told you where you can get it. And as a matter of fact, it's on Amazon. If you go on Amazon and you need all the documentation, all the commentary, not 100%, because we put it there so that, again, nobody could complain that they need access to this information, they can't get it. If you go to Amazon and Amazon Books and you enter the fence that broke the scammers back, I repeat that, the fence that broke the scammers back, then you have the information, the scanned documents, and so we put it there. So if law enforcement wants to access all the documents, if an ordinary citizen wants to access those documents, if a professor, a lawyer, a judge wants to accept those documents, it's always there. There is a fee, because I've asked them to do a paperback, an e-book, and a hard copy, so that you can preserve it in any form you want. And therefore, there are no excuses. I've said to everybody, use this for us to effect change. That's what I'm about. Because I do believe that I have relatives that are alive that will survive me long into the future. And so therefore, I want to ensure that this country becomes much better than it is today. That we stop sliding down that slippery slope of a country that's headed towards a failed state, and start moving our country back up to a point where we again can smile when we see each other. Thank you. Have a great day. And the book is on Amazon. The book, the fence that brought the scammers back. And when you read that, you'll understand why we use the term fence that brought the scammers back. Also, go back and review all those videos. They're important. I found it informative to go back and review some of those videos, because then I find it difficult to say, did I really go through this? Am I really going through this? And why am I going through this? In reality, why? So go back, review those videos, and I'm asking you to subscribe, because I found out that's the most important thing. Click the like button, because then more people can get to see the information, which is my objective, to get it out there to as many people as we can. So subscribe, because then that puts us into another realm where I can now use this channel and the information out there to garner more information, more details, better quality presentations, so that you have that as a guiding post to improve your life and protect your family's life. So like, subscribe, and share. Most importantly, share the video. So if you haven't subscribed and you've gone back, those persons have been making comments. They're important, they're necessary, because it allows everybody else who sees them to think about what you're saying. And so it's important that you not only make the statements you're making, but I'm asking, like I've said, I'm a solutions-driven person. So make suggestions. The suggestions you make, you might think are insignificant. And don't sit on it, because what you think may be insignificant could be that magic, I don't want to use bullet, but I'm going to use it in this case. Might be that magic potion we need to make a difference. One person hear what you say, we can build on it, and together we can achieve the objectives. So please review the videos. Don't just be a one time. It's not for entertainment. And that's the other thing I want people to understand. I'm not doing this to entertain people. I'm not doing it just to make money. I'm not doing it to make money off this at all. Because as I've said to you, my money is tied up because of these corrupt judges. And that money, whether I get it personally or it gets to my beneficiaries, they're going to get it, because it's just a matter of law that they must get it, because the law is on our side. We've been successful in courts, and yes, a lot of our projects that we detailed are being held up, but the fact is they are going to pay my joint venture partners and the persons who got involved and our beneficiaries, successors in the interests of those businesses. So we're going to get paid. It's just a matter of time. But you playing a role in getting this message out is not only going to help us, it's going to help the country we want to build up. It's going to help the people in the country, because a country is no good if it has a strong economy but the people are struggling and poor, like in the US. You have more street people in the US than you have anywhere else in the world. In a rich country, that is, an industrialized country, you have more street people living on the street, don't know where the next meal is coming from. And this is not a refugee country. So that should tell you something. So it's not just about empowering a nation and knowing it has massive incomes. What's happening to the money that comes in? I hear rumor flashing around that the government had a surplus of 80 billion. I think it's $80 billion. But what do we do with that surplus? It's just money now for people who are scammers and thieves in the government to find ways to spend it. And instead of spending it where it's going to be more beneficial to the nation. That's why we need that watchdog group. That's why we need to be solutions-oriented people that sit down and come up with solutions to fix things, to identify crooks, to remove them, and remove them without fear or favor. So that's what this channel is about. So help me please to get the message out, so that one day you'll see somebody else making the presentation. Because I said I want to grow a long-term, permanent organization that's here to watch and make and ensure that whatever mandated change we put in place, they stay in place. And if they need to be amended or adjusted, then we have a working committee that can always examine and make those changes as we evolve. So again, people, have a great day. Share the videos, subscribe. I'm going to be spending this week putting together the information on the people that are outside the US that are involved in this conspiracy. A conspiracy that's clear on the surface and documented, that a judge in the Supreme Court would just casually sit there and say no conspiracy without any kind of decision, written decision that even deals with that. So highlighting those, because it's helpful, and that will help us to determine what kind of attorneys we need in the future and what kind of judges and how they become both. Thanks a lot and have a good one. Bye now.